The diplomatic summit on Station Kepler 7 was supposed to be routine. Commander David Ross had attended dozens of these interspecies negotiations, always standing 3 paces behind Ambassador Patricia Monroe as she worked her magic with words. The Valrine delegation sat across the crystalline table, their translucent skin shimmering under the station's artificial lights. David's wife, Lieutenant Emma Ross, monitored security feeds from the adjacent room. She was good at her job, perhaps too good. Her dedication had grown into something colder over their 5 years of marriage, something that made their quarters feel like a military installation rather than a home. Ambassador Monroe leaned forward, her auburn hair catching the light as she addressed the Valrine Trade Minister. She spoke with warmth, with genuine interest in the alien perspective, asking questions that went beyond protocols and into actual understanding. David had watched her diffuse 3 potential conflicts in the past month alone, not through human stubbornness, but through something the galaxy rarely saw: empathy married to competence. "Your concerns about the mining rights are valid," Monroe said, her voice carrying that particular tone that made even the most rigid species relax. "Let's explore a joint venture instead of competing claims." The Valrine minister's facial tentacles rippled with what their species considered a smile. David had seen Emma negotiate once, back when they were both junior officers. She had approached it like a battle simulation, maximizing gains and minimizing losses. She had won, but the other party had left angry. During the recess, David stood by the observation window, watching stars streak past as the station orbited the gas giant below. Monroe joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You look tired," she said, handing him one. "Long week," David replied. "How's Emma?" "Busy, always busy." He tried to keep the weariness from his voice. Monroe nodded, understanding more than he said. She had that gift too, reading between the lines. "My ex-husband used to say I cared more about aliens than about him." Maybe he was right. "This job takes something from you." "She's not wrong to prioritize her career," David said quickly, defensive even though Monroe hadn't criticized Emma. "No, she's not wrong. But neither are you for wanting something more." They stood in silence, and David felt that dangerous comfort, the kind that made him imagine different choices, different timelines. Monroe had been married once, divorced for 3 years now. She threw herself into her work with the same intensity Emma did, but somehow Monroe had kept her humanity intact. She remembered birthdays, asked about families, learned the names of every crew member's children. The conference resumed. David watched Monroe work, watched her build bridges with nothing but words and genuine care. The Valrine were notoriously difficult, a species that had rejected humanity's first 7 ambassadors. Monroe had been the 8th, and within 2 months, she had established trade agreements that benefited both sides. "Remarkable woman," the Valrine minister said during another break, speaking directly to David for the first time. Their translator device rendered the words in flat English. "She treats us as equals, not as puzzles to solve or obstacles to overcome. This is rare among your kind." David nodded, pride mixing with that uncomfortable feeling in his chest. That evening, after the Valrine had returned to their ship, David found himself alone in the officers' lounge. Monroe entered, still in her diplomatic attire, looking exhausted but satisfied. "We did it," she said, collapsing into the chair across from him. "Full trade agreement, mutual defense pact, cultural exchange program. The Valrine are officially our allies." "You did it," David corrected. "I just stood there looking official." She laughed, and the sound was warm, unguarded. "You do that very well." They talked for an hour about nothing important and everything important. She told him about growing up on Mars Colony, about her daughter from her previous marriage who was studying xenobiology on Earth. He told her about his childhood in the Pacific Northwest, about forests he hadn't seen in 6 years. Emma doesn't like Earth, he found himself saying. Too chaotic, she says. Too unpredictable. Space is more unpredictable, Monroe pointed out. At least Earth's dangers are familiar. She likes problems she can solve with procedures and protocols. Monroe studied him with those perceptive eyes. And you like problems that require improvisation. Maybe that's why we're stuck, David admitted, the words coming easier than they should have. She wants order. I want life. Monroe reached across the table, squeezed his hand once, then withdrew. It's hard, loving someone who's become a stranger. David returned to his quarters at 0200 hours. Emma was still awake, reviewing security reports on her tablet. She glanced up when he entered, her expression neutral. The summit went well, he said. I saw the reports, Emma replied. Ambassador Monroe continues to exceed expectations. He heard something in her tone, something sharp, hidden under the professional words. She's good at what she does. Yes, Emma said, looking back at her tablet. Very good. David prepared for bed in silence. They had stopped talking months ago, really talking. Every conversation was a briefing, every interaction scheduled and efficient. He couldn't remember the last time they had laughed together. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Emma continued working at her desk. The soft blue glow of her tablet was the only light in the room in the darkness. Exhausted and unguarded, David whispered the words that had been building in his chest for months. I wish you were like her. He had meant to think it, not say it. The words were barely audible, a breath more than speech. Emma's tablet went dark. The silence that followed was absolute, a kind that exists in the void between stars. David's heart hammered against his ribs as he realized his mistake. He had spoken aloud. She had heard. What did you say? Emma's voice was carefully controlled, each word precise as a scalpel cut. David sat up, his mind racing. Emma, I didn't mean. Yes, you did. She stood, and in the dim emergency lighting, her face was a stranger's. You wish I were like Patricia Monroe. The use of the ambassador's full name, formal and distancing, made everything worse. David swung his legs off the bed, reaching for explanations that wouldn't make this catastrophe worse. I was tired. I wasn't thinking. You were thinking exactly clearly, Emma interrupted. Probably more clearly than you have in months. You want a wife who bakes cookies for the crew, who remembers everyone's birthday, who radiates warmth and maternal concern. That's not fair? Fair? Emma's voice finally cracked, and David heard the pain beneath her anger. You married a soldier, David. You knew who I was. I never pretended to be anything else. She was right, and the truth of it made his chest ache. He had known. Emma had been direct from their first meeting. She was career military, driven, focused on excellence in every task. She had told him she wasn't good with emotions, that she expressed love through actions, not words. He had said it was enough. He had believed it was enough. I thought I could change, Emma said quietly, sitting back down at her desk. I thought maybe marriage would make me softer, more like other women. But I'm not built that way. I can't be what you need. I don't want you to change, David said, and was surprised to find he meant it. The wish he had whispered wasn't for Emma to become someone else. It was for him to stop wanting something she couldn't give. Then what do you want? David crossed the room, knelt beside her chair. I want to stop feeling lonely when we're in the same room. Emma looked at him, and her eyes were wet. He had seen her cry exactly twice in 5 years, once at their wedding, once when her father died. She blinked rapidly, forcing the tears back. I don't know how to be what you need, she said. I can protect you. I can ensure our future is secure. I can solve problems and complete missions. But the warm, nurturing things, the spontaneous affection, the easy intimacy, that's not in my programming. You're not a machine, David said. Sometimes I wonder. She touched his face, and her hand was shaking slightly. I love you, David, but I love you the way a fortress loves what it protects, solid and unmovable and cold. They sat in silence, and David felt the weight of the choice before them. He could leave, find someone who gave him the warmth he craved. Or he could stay, accepting that love came in different forms, some of them harder to recognize. Monroe's daughter doesn't speak to her, David said finally. She told me tonight. 3 years of estrangement because Monroe chose her career over attending her college graduation. Emma looked at him, surprised. Everyone's warmth comes at a cost, David continued. Monroe gives everything to strangers and has nothing left for family. You give everything to keeping us safe. Maybe that's worth something. Is it enough? Emma asked. David stood, pulled her up, and wrapped his arms around her. She was stiff at first, then slowly relaxed against him. Her heart beat steady and strong, the heart of a soldier, the heart of someone who would stand against any threat to protect what was hers. I don't know, he admitted, but I want to try finding out. Emma pulled back, looking into his eyes. I can't promise to change. I can't promise to stop wanting things you can't give. She almost smiled. Terrible foundation for a marriage. Honest foundation, David corrected. Maybe that's enough to build on. In the end, they returned to bed, lying side by side in the darkness. Emma took his hand, her grip firm and sure. It wasn't gentle, wasn't so.